Let's go ahead and get started, everyone. Good morning or afternoon, depending where you are. Thank you so much all for joining us today. We have a great panel here to discuss about professionalism in the clinical setting. So really excited to have everyone here today on the panel, and also everyone here as participants who's interested in this topic and would like to discuss this and explore it further. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Dr. Aimee Holdwick. I'm one of the department chairs for the Department of Professionalism, and my co-chairs are here as well, Lamya, Kamel, and Kimberlie Wilson. And we also have a great group of panelists to talk about this topic. So I'll introduce them in just a few moments here. This session is being recorded, so it will be posted on YouTube after, so that you can share this if you like to. And hope that you share this with others so we can kind of keep making this discussion go further and have people self-reflect and consider about these important topics. So this is our third panel discussion. We have one each term. And our purpose, our mission as a department is to really promote professionalism throughout all of Pacific College, through all of the programs and campuses and all of the different groups. So with faculty, students, staff, and alumni. And help everyone to develop professionalism in themselves and in our professions as we all move forward out from Pacific College. So we also hope to kind of build community across all of our different groups as we're so spread out, and we have so many different programs that we are now offering. So today is specifically going to focus on professionalism in the clinical setting. And professionalism, we've talked in our other panels, is a really complex topic. It's hard to pin down into a few words. So by having these discussions, we hope that it helps to promote our understanding in a collective sense by discussing and considering all of these nuances of professionalism. And it really means different things to different people in different settings. And we always like to remind people it's not about perfection, right? It's a lot about self-reflection and about continuing to develop ourselves and become more aware. So that's what we hope to kind of promote through these activities. So hope that you guys take away from this, and each of us, how can we more actively embody professionalism and maybe influence others around us to be more professional. So the chat box is open. You guys, please, if you like, put stuff in the chat box if you have any questions or comments, and we'll try to weave that into the panel as we get going, if not address it at the end. And the three chairs, we always welcome comments or questions to us via email as well, and we'll share our emails at the end of the presentation. So I am so thrilled to introduce our panelists. So here they are, and if you guys maybe want to wave as I say your names. So first on the list, Felicia Newsome. She's a licensed massage therapist. She is the creator and founder of the Center for the Advancement of Therapeutic Arts Oncology Massage Certificate Program. So really cool program. And she's an acupuncture graduate from the New York campus. We also have Caroline Ortiz. She is one of our wonderful Department of Nursing faculty. She has her background in public health and nursing, and she's also a board certified nurse coach. We have Dr. Noah Rubinstein. He is the Chief Clinical Director of Yinova. He's an acupuncturist and herbalist, and he is a graduate of both the master's and doctoral programs in acupuncture from Pacific College, San Diego. We also have Dr. Leng Tang-Ritchie, who is our Director of Clinical Services and Clinical Practice Department Chair here in San Diego, also a graduate from acupuncture programs from Pacific College. And last but not least, Erminia Williams, who is a licensed massage therapist. She is Student Council President and currently working through the acupuncture program in Chicago. And she also is on faculty in the massage program. So welcome to all of our panelists. Can't wait to get into our panel. I'm also here with my co-chairs, as I mentioned. Dr. Lamya Kamel is here, and also Dr. Kimberlie Wilson. So Lamya is from the Chicago campus, and Kimberlie is from the New York campus. So if you ever need to reach out to any of us, we always welcome the contact. So before we do jump into the actual panel, I also like to always make sure we take a little time to share what the department's been working on. So last time we shared with everyone our working definition of professionalism. And if you are interested, our last two panels are available on YouTube. And so you can kind of see over time what the department has been working on. And most recently, we put together a set of department learning outcomes. So I'd like to just share those briefly with you so that you get a feel for what the department's also working on. These should lead into course learning outcomes for students in the classroom, and also would hope to have something for faculty and for staff to work on these learning outcomes, as our goal is to promote this through all areas and all programs at the school. So these do apply to faculty, staff, and students, and we hope graduates carry them forward as well. So the first, to display respect for others and our attitude and behavior in all college settings, and we would say beyond. To demonstrate a professional presence through things like our language, grooming, and dress, appropriate to each setting and activity. Again, these things shift, right? They're a little bit fluid depending on who and where the setting is. Next is to model accountability, a commitment to excellence, integrity, and responsiveness through these kinds of activities. Active participation, keeping up on emails, keeping informed, responding to email, making sure you hit your due dates. And so these are important as a student and also as a professional. And then developing compassion and an increasing ability to relate to others. So whoever those others are, but particular giving attention to things like cultural differences or age or gender or disability or ability status. So more things there, of course, to consider. They're just some examples for us to get an idea. And then finally, to always be ethical. So exhibiting ethical principles in all settings. And again, some examples: maintaining strict patient-client confidentiality, following the honor code, and of course, there's many, many more examples, but just to give a flavor for what each of these things mean. So that's the most recent thing that we've put together as we're piecing a plan forward. And again, our next step would be to develop some course learning outcomes, and always continuing to promote the discussion and development, self-reflection of this, because it's in each of us bringing what we can that we promote this. So with that, I will be turning it over to Dr. Kamel, and she will be moderating this great panel.
Excellent. Thank you, Aimee, so much. And thanks for all the panelists for joining us and everyone else who's joining us today. Really excited to get into this. So let's talk about it. I thought we would start with Felicia. I'd love to hear your opinions on how does a professional clinical approach to patient and client care contribute to your success clinically?
Honestly, I think that the first thing that we always need to do when we're talking about being professionals, we need to have protocols, procedures, and guidelines for the people that are working within our environment. Mostly that helps people to understand what expectations are as employees, as a boss, as an employee, even as clients, right? Even your patients that are coming in, you need to manage their expectations of what they should be able to do and expect when they're in your environment. And if everyone has this information, if you're training everyone to kind of stay within these steps of things, even if someone needs to go out of step, if everyone knows what the steps are, if someone needs to go out of step for any reason, you can figure out where that happened. And if there's a problem, you get to fix it. And so it's important to, first of all, start with having clear protocols, clear procedures, clear guidelines for your staff and for your environment, for your company. And then I just lost my train of thought. But basically, that's what I think. I think it's really starting there, because your professionalism, you can only judge it, and judge is not a really good word, but you can only judge it if you have certain things in place. And if everyone is trained to do these certain things, and I mean everyone, from your top of the person that's at the top, your boss, to the janitors, to the people who are doing building maintenance, everyone needs to know how to do things, because if we're paying attention, most of the people, what we do is a kind of, Kimberlie mentioned it a couple of days ago to me. She called it the healing arts, that we are in the healing arts. So if we are in the healing arts, it all starts with the moment that you have first contact with me or my company, or with whatever it is that I'm doing. The moment you have it as a client, the moment you have it as somebody who wants to work with me, the moment we have first contact, that is important. So that's all I got right now.
Excellent. I love that idea of setting expectations, but also having that continuity between not just the patient and the practitioner, but also everyone else that's involved. I love that idea. I think about that a lot in our clinics, that it's not just the clinician that's doing everything. We're really a full team, and having that cohesiveness is really essential to success. I'd love actually to transition then to Noah, Dr. Rubinstein, because I think that, in your situation, running multiple clinics as well, I imagine this is something that you encounter. So I'd love to hear kind of how that impacts you.
Sure. Thanks, and thanks for holding this panel. Professionalism for us at the beginning and the end of the day here at Yinova is about case management, and that is ultimately how we bring our two assets, our skills and also information that we have as practitioners to our patients. And it boils down to a couple of points that we kind of turn our gaze to and meditate on and focus on periodically to just make sure that we're hitting all of the marks that we want to as a team. First and foremost, the medicine that we practice is a medicine of holism. So bearing in mind that our patients are having complex experiences, even if they just come in for a sprained ankle or they have some really complicated and chronic conditions, that they are operating simultaneously at the various levels of like body, mind, spirit, and so on. And to not lose sight of that stuff, because it sort of undermines some of the power of this medicine. We try to be really accountable with our patients. Accountability and being honest and straightforward in our assessments with patients about what we think is going on with them, communicating with them and giving them tools for taking the next steps in their healthcare, as well as what we think we can provide for them, what our strengths are, what our possibilities are, but also what our limitations are. I think that Chinese medicine can save the world from so many things, but the reality is, we're part of patients' healthcare teams, and that's important. So being accountable and responsible for our patients is important. Giving them a clear plan is really valuable when it comes to being professional and moving a patient's case management forward. We try not to give our patients an opportunity to think that we are going to just kind of like throw stuff at the wall and wait for something to stick. Coming up with clear treatment plans, assessments along the way, so that we know that we're hitting marks and moving in the direction that we want to. Treating them as individuals, again, inherent in our medicine, recognizing that patients have individual health journeys, simple, complicated concerns, whatever they're coming to us with, that we see them and not their condition. Partnership is really, really important. That's in some ways at the core, for me personally, that's always been at the core of what I've wanted to do with the medicine, what I think reflects the professional relationships that I regard, and the mentors I've worked with, many at Pacific and other providers. There's a term, Ren, the pictogram that has a symbol of a torso of a person with the number 2 next to it. And this is the highest of the Confucian virtues. It is partnership, it is allyship, it is benevolence and caring between and support between two people. And so that partnership, that we are in the water with our patients and they now have somebody on their side, in their corner, that's key. And then depth, recognizing, again, inherent in our medicine, but not always given in the clinical situation. where professionalism is driven by helping our patients recognize that we see them and that there are roots and there are branches and that these things are connected, and communicating all of these other things, the partnership, the accountability, the connection with them and even their other healthcare providers, making sure that we are communicating to them that we see them for their complex lives. We do have a large clinic here. We've got 3 locations. We have many practitioners. And so one of the things that I think is important, if you're ever going to find yourself in a group like this, or even in a smaller environment with other colleagues that you're renting a space in, but kind of have separate practices, if patients are being shared between them, making sure that there is a continuity of care, continuing the story for the patient from one practitioner to the next, so that they don't feel like they're just getting handed off when you go on vacation, or something comes up for you, or it's a timely treatment that they need to see somebody else for. Making sure that they feel like, again, you're on their side, you've communicated for them, they don't have to retell their story. Booking, availability, making sure, being available for your patients, of course, without overextending yourself, so that you're not kind of compromising your solidity and your position and your chi, but letting your patients, again, getting back to the same idea, know that you're there for them and that you're reachable. If a patient responds, email them back within a reasonable amount of time, call them. It doesn't mean that you have to be there and responding to their 2:30 a.m. freakouts at 3:30 a.m., but being accountable in the sense of you reach back to them. And then another thing that we think is really, really important here, if you're going to have any kind of a front desk staff, they have to know that they are part of the healthcare team. Your front desk reception, our front desk reception, put it that way, is a core part of our team. And they are the first people that our patients speak to on the phone. They're the last people that our patients see when they're walking out the door. And they handle all kinds of things that that we as practitioners may have kind of handed off to them. They've got tremendous responsibility, and they're an extension of your practice. So if you are going to have either a solo practice and one person kind of picking up phones for you, or you're going to have a large multi-practitioner, multi-practice environment, supporting and empowering your front desk staff is I can't overstate that enough. So those are some of the things that we think about. Yeah, that's professionalism for us.
I love it, because I think the core of everything that you discussed was intentionality with pretty much every step of what you're doing. And I think that's so inherent to how we practice, all of the practices, at Pacific College. So I think it's, I love that you bring that intentionality to every piece of the puzzle. That's great. Thank you, Noah, for sharing. I'd love to hear from Erminia, actually, from the student perspective. So I kind of want to bounce between sort of the endpoint, sort of the goal, where Noah and his practices, to where you're going to be building towards. So Erminia, I'd love to hear kind of your perspective.
Well, coming from a student's perspective, you all paved the way for us to learn how to be professionals in our own domains, right? So the study and the journey starts here at Pacific College, being able to be an intern, being able to have that first intent with our client and have that relationship building. So you all paved the way, and you showing us that you are professionals when you come through the door speaks volumes. We are then able to exemplify and then create our own types of professional backgrounds by looking at you. So I have created like the EAARP, so like the AARP, but E standing for exemplary, exploring, and creating exceptional care. So that care not only starts from the minute I walk in the door, the care starts from when that client walks in the door. The staff that we have, right? So our staff are also our students. So they need to know, of course, how the ship is run from the front to the back, right? In order to give exceptional care. Then moving down to the double A. So we have accountability and accessibility. We need to be accountable for what we're doing in the clinic. So you hold us accountable for the work that we're doing, the work that we're not doing, hand-holding when we need the hand-holding, and letting us go and learning how to be the professionals on our own. That is our accountability standpoint. Accessibility will be more of making sure that we have everything that we need to operate professionally in our clinic, right? Our clients are coming in, they're expecting, they're interns, right? They're gonna have some limitations, but when they come in, they want to see a professional atmosphere. They wanna see us acting as if we are the doctors in our fields and we know this Chinese medicine, right? So having tools that we need to be efficient is a part of that role. So making sure that we're fully staffed, that everyone's there on time, everyone has their game face on and they're ready to go. And then moving down to our R, right? Reliability. Are you really there? Our mind's there, right? So I know we're coming up on midterms, right? So we might not fully be there during our midterm time, but we need to know how to separate and check those things at the door. So as students, we also look to you to say, hey, bring your game face. I need you to be here on time and be prompt, right, with your service. So now moving to my P's. I have a lot of names for my P's, right? So planning the clinical output for our patients, right? So having a plan for them, making sure that they come back, ask for the business. We need to make sure that we ask for them to return. And then we should feel comfortable because when we become our own professionals, we need to practice that. That's the only way we're going to be able to retain our clientele. Also, partnerships. I've heard that a lot. Having partnerships, having clear communication with the clinic manager about what we're going to be doing today. Or if we are seeing this client for the second time, what didn't work in our session? What did we do wrong? Or what did we do great that we need to do again? So having that relationship, partnership with the patient, of course, and their internal medicine doctor if needed, making sure our charts are up to date and found, making sure everything is there. And then the last P would be passion. Making sure that this is where you want to be as a student. Some people enter the healthcare profession because they feel like it's lucrative, right? Chinese medicine can be lucrative, but is your passion there? Make sure you're here to heal. I'm a healer. As a licensed massage therapist, I'm a healer. As a Chinese medical student, I am a healer. And when you operate in that light, it shows. Your clients really love that. So have passion, students. Have passion, interns, and have passion for all the professionals who are leading us, making sure that we have passion. And then I put an S on the end. And that S means that every staff member should smile. Everyone should be wearing a smile because smile is yang, right? It's warming. So we want to make sure that everyone feels comfortable when they come and experience our best medicine at Peaches. That's all I have.
Excellent. I love that. I wish we were classmates in school. We would have got along just great. And yes, I think we're all kind of working on our skill set of smizing, right, with the masks on now. So I feel like my jaw hurts more because I'm smiling so hard to make sure my eyes can show that. But I love that. I really appreciate that point that you make, Erminia, about faculty showing professionalism as well. That's a really important aspect of this whole department. In fact, this is not about how can we infuse professionalism into the students. It's everywhere. It's every aspect of our college. So I love that you mentioned that because I think that's really an essential part of what we're doing and essential part of your growth as well as students. And as faculty, since you're faculty as well, which I think is a perfect segue actually to Dr. Tang-Ritchie, because I'd love to hear, you run our clinic at our San Diego campus. I'd love to hear kind of the other side of it, how you infuse that from your perspective and how you support that in our students.
Thank you. Well, first I want to thank thank the Department of Professionalism for having this panel in professionalism in the clinic. I think it's so important, and it's so, you know, it really takes the students from the classroom into actually practicing in real life, right? What they're going to be doing when they graduate. So thank you so much, and thank you so much for the panel members on being here. You know, oftentimes we talk about models, clinical models, like the team-based care and the patient-centered care approach. When it comes to every type of model, one of the central pillars of these models is having a professional clinical approach, right? Professionalism in the clinic promotes patient safety as well as patient confidence. And it's been mentioned already, from the moment the patient calls to set an appointment to getting off the treatment table, the healthcare team should communicate well in a manner that conveys respect for the patient and for one another, right? For your colleagues, for your fellow staff members, for your fellow students, right? You know, it also includes anticipating needs of the patients. And we're communicating this with integrity and confidentiality and responsibility in our speech, our treatment, and the actions that we take. You know, patients come into any type of healthcare setting to receive care, right? I think it's so easy, especially, you know, when we are students. And I remember being like this when I was a student, when I was a first turn intern, and I remember Lamya, who was also in my doctoral program with me, right? Oftentimes it's so easy to narrowly define care as just diagnosis and the treatment of this patient, right? We want to be able to make sure that we are right, we get it right, and we we go through all the different TCM approaches, through all the classical approaches, and we just want to get it right, where this patient becomes just a puzzle that we need to work out. But we know as practitioners, we know as holistic practitioners, that to receive care is so much more than that. And it takes an evolution in practice and experience in practice, and just stepping back sometimes when before you step into the treatment room, to really look at this person, look at this patient that's in front of you, who is here to receive care from you, right? So, you know, when it comes to receiving care, it's a feeling of being welcomed, of being listened to, of being heard, right? Of being given the space to feel vulnerable, because they're there and they're essentially asking you for help. And that's really hard to do, right? That's like, asking for help is really hard to do. And they're there being vulnerable to you and opening up to you, right? So it's, you know, also a feeling of being able to trust someone, trust that trusted practitioner regarding something that is so intrinsically felt and a concern for you, right? That they hold that same concern for your well-being, right? That they see how scared you are sometimes, you know, so sometimes how much in pain you are, right? That they see and they hear you. And that's often what I get from patients when it comes to their, you know, when they get out of treatment. It's either, wow, you know, I have had such a great experience because everybody heard me, right? Or everybody saw me, right? Or unfortunately, sometimes we also get the opposite. I don't think I was listened to at all, right? Oh goodness, right? So they're there for, you know, they're asking for help. And that's part of professionalism, is letting your patients know that they're welcomed and that they're heard, and this is safe for them to be in. You know, research often shows that a team-based approach care supports you know, it's more efficient, and of course it's also more effective in delivery services, right? We take a patient from the first phone call to a treatment plan afterwards, and then rebooking them, right? It takes different types of gears or different spots, and that's, you know, when it comes to that professionalism, it's that workflow that Dr. Rubinstein and others have mentioned earlier, right? When it comes to patient-centered care, right, that promotes positive outcomes and faster recovery time because the patient feels like they're part of that team and the team for their own health. You know, I'm really proud to be the director of clinical services, especially in San Diego. Just, you know, our students are amazing, and it's really so satisfying to see or hear when patients come in and they have these, you know, they've come from a place where this is their last hope of reducing their pain, because that's what we do. We make miracles, right? With acupuncture and with massage, right? And with nursing, right? We make miracles because we're there for our patients. You know, having a professional clinical approach is the foundation for that team-based care, for that patient-centered care. And this is where our patients feel safe, they feel supported, and they have confidence in their healthcare goals, right? And this is really what we're here for. Thank you so much for hosting this.
Yeah, I love that. Thanks, Leng. Yes, we did do our doctorate program together. So we saw all the highs and lows together. I love that concept of creating a place of safety. I think that is something that's unbelievably important right now. And this past year, for sure. I think that people were forced into places of vulnerability, like it or not, and ensuring that they were in a place where they felt safe is really important. And I love that that's being infused into our education system from the beginning in the clinics. I think that's excellent. I certainly see that in our practice, and but to know that we're making that a priority at the student level is just so important. Thanks, Leng. I wanted to turn to Caroline, who is in the nursing profession, and I'm really excited to hear what you all have to say, because one, it's interesting. Just give you a little background on how we came up with our professionalism definition. We absolutely looked at some of the definitions that were created through the nursing profession as well. They have a really great structure for this, so I'm really excited to have you talk a little bit about how that is part of the education piece, but also part of your practice.
Thank you so much for hosting this. I love the conversation because this is how we pass it on. We understand these concepts better, share, as you said, Lamya, share sort of best practices, what we can learn from each other and how we put it into practice, because ultimately that's the goal, for these things to live beyond just suggestions. So I will have take this discussion beyond just the clinic setting, because for nursing, we actually have guidance from the American Association of the Colleges of Nursing that just this year updated their what they call the essentials. And these are core competencies for professional nursing education, but that ultimately end up in actual practice of nursing. And this is across the lifespan, all ages, with patients, communities, groups. And so these are broken down into 10 domains, which I won't cover all 10 in this discussion, but kind of the 6 that I felt were really pertinent to this conversation. And in anticipation of that, I thank my colleagues who also helped me prepare to share these with you. As we go along, I'll name them individually. So the very first, though, being the concept of professionalism. What is it that nursing is talking about through their as an essential domain or a core competency in nursing practice? And professionalism itself is described as, you know, the continual forming and cultivation of a sustainable professional identity as a nurse. It's also accountability. accountability to yourself, to your colleagues, to your patients, of course, to the organizations and to the systems within which we work. It's also having a collaborative disposition. And this touches back on something that Noah brought up as far as, partnering and collaborating, not just with other disciplines and other professionals, but with communities and partnering with individual patients. Another is this domain of personal, professional, and leadership development. And what this means is that there is an expectation that nurses will participate in both activities and self-reflection that foster personal health, foster resilience, and our own well-being, in addition to kind of the academic, more formalized growth and activities through lifelong learning and leadership, kind of taking hold of those opportunities of leadership. Knowledge of nursing practice, which I thank Dr. Carrie Clark for contributing. She offers that in nursing, we draw from many disciplines, including the humanities and philosophy and the biological sciences. And nursing is also its own professional practice as an applied art and science. Unlike and very much like many of the programs here at the college. And we being nursing, recognize that clinical judgment grows from the experience that we have as nurses and within nursing, but also from a reflective practice on our own position within nursing, with our own responsibilities and perspectives within the profession of nursing, as well as our roles as part of a larger healthcare team. Quality and safety is another domain, and I thank Dr. Leng King for contributing this. And quality and safety really is also at the core of nursing, to enhance the quality of the care, but also minimizing the risk and harm to our patients and to ourselves as providers. She offers polypharmacy, an example through polypharmacy, which is sort of the simultaneous use of multiple drugs, including herbals and nutritional supplements, which is a major safety concern for providers and for patients. And a formal holistic process of reconciling medications in which the healthcare providers partner with patients and their families at places where we intersect in care to create a most complete and accurate list of possible of what the client is currently taking, but also where there may be some education or some communication that must be had to prevent adverse drug events. Another domain is system-based practice, and I thank Dr. Carla Mariano for this. System-based practices is a response to and leading within this behemoth that we have of a healthcare system. So the holistic nurse provides a relationship-focused environment created through presence and intention. Notice this is well beyond just knowledge and skills. Presence and intention, creating sacred spaces where others can feel safe to unfold and explore the dimensions of self in healing. Holistic nurses have an integral role in re-envisioning and transforming these organizational cultures into authentic, healing healthcare systems, and trying to remove the political and financial barriers to the inclusion of holistic care in the system that we are all a part of or becoming a part of. And interprofessional partnerships, which is intentional collaboration, again, between professions, but also with stakeholders, with patients and families, and between communities. And this is all for the goal of optimizing care and enhancing the experience, as Leng talked about, but also strengthening the outcomes of that care. And I wanted to highlight personally my personal experience with this domain of interpersonal partnerships, which was really a gift to me through here at Pacific College. And it's one collaboration with the Integrative Health Project, which is led by Joan Bacino and Yefim Gamganishvili. And that project offers a traditional East Asian medicine in rural communities in Guatemala as just one example. But our holistic nurses actually were invited to participate in offering health education and supporting the clinics that were held there. So with that being just one example, I think Pacific College in particular is such a well of potential for grander interprofessional education, collaboration and research, and really just taking this idea of integrative care to greater heights because of the amazing resources in people that we have and community that we've built here at the college. So I'll just very quickly mention the domains that I didn't mention, but that are part of the essentials of core competencies for professional nursing practice, and those being person-centered care, population health, scholarship for nursing practice, and information and healthcare technologies. So these are all areas that are expectations, not just in nursing education, but the intention being that this is how we practice and hold our discipline up to being professionals in healthcare and being those members of the healthcare team that add to the grander outcomes that we're all hoping for.
Excellent. Thank you so much for sharing. You can see why we very much modeled some of our definition and a lot of our thought processes around that. I think there's a really nice, tight definition, and also it's beyond the education piece, like you said. It's beyond that. It's into the actual professional practice, and it's something that's continually being developed. I love that idea of developing and growing. It's not something stagnant. It's not a box you check your last semester in school and off you go to the world. That it's something that it's inherent into our development as well. Yeah, thanks for sharing, Caroline. Well, I definitely have questions I'd love to ask the panelists, but I wanted to see first if there are any questions that anybody who is participating had that wanted to put out there. Let you think about it. If you want to throw it in the chat, you can do that as well. But I was thinking about one of the things you mentioned, Felicia. I'd love to talk to you about kind of your role, because you work with a very specific population. We didn't get into that too much, but you know, I think it must have been quite a feat to bring in massage therapy into the world that you're in right now. I'd love for you to talk a little bit about how you were able to do that. I imagine a lot of the professional attributes that you discussed helped kind of bridge you into that place, but what allowed you to kind of get your foot in the door there?
You know, it's interesting. Massage, I was actually asked when I first became a massage therapist, someone I went to school with asked me if I wanted to work with cancer patients and sent me on a job interview, and the job interview was for Sloan Kettering. And so they hired me, and I was there for 6.5 years. And, you know, when you're working someplace, when you're working someplace, you see what works and you see what doesn't work, right? You see where you're being trained, where people are being trained, or where people are not being trained. And especially if you're looking at it particularly, that is part of how my brain works, is how do we all get on the same page? And so being there for 6.5 years, and then I was invited to work at NYU. And it's very funny because I say invited because I really was invited. Both jobs were invitations to me. And when I was invited to work at NYU in their clinical cancer center, the same thing happened. I saw what was working, I saw what wasn't working. And again, 6.5 years there, I realized that I was being asked to train massage therapists on how to work with the cancer patients at NYU because they didn't have any real protocols. There was no real way of doing things. And since I was so vocal And I felt, look, you asked me to do this, so I'm going to tell you what my opinion is, right? So I was very instrumental in putting into place at NYU, helping them to put things into place, what the therapists can do, what the therapists can't do, had conversations with all the nurses, all the doctors, making sure that that integrated thing was happening. NYU was a real experience for me to be able to do that. And that's how the program came into play, because it made sense to me that we need to put something in place where massage therapists can literally learn how to work safely and effectively with cancer patients. And we need to train them how to do that. They need to be trained from the moment that they meet the person to the very last time that they see the person. All these little nuances of what you have to do and what you don't have to do, and what you have to think about it. Because really working with cancer patients or oncology patients is really critical thinking the whole time. What I can and cannot do, what my technical skill is not relevant if I can't critically think through what I need to do or not do for someone. And so that's how the program, the oncology program at CATA, came into play, because I realized we needed a full program. It's a full program. But at the clinic there, we have a clinic after people have been trained, we put a clinic in place for them to actually work on cancer patients. And at the clinic there, the one thing I can tell you that I learned from all of my experience working in the cancer world was my job is to lead. At that clinic, my job is to lead. So the moment that I walk in, my first group of people that I need to address and I need to lead and I need to make sure are okay are the people who are working for me, because they are the ones that are going to deal with the clients. So I need to make sure that they're okay. I need to make sure that all the words that we said today, that they're empowered, that they're supported, that they're safe, that everybody feels safe. And it's not just the clients that need to feel safe. And they don't also, it's also the people that are working there. Everyone needs to feel like whatever they did in that room was an effective thing. Even if they didn't get the outcome they wanted, that everyone felt safe. Everyone was, that there was an effective session that happened. So I'm not sure if I'm answering the question, but the reality of it is that I had to understand my place in all of what I did. So I had the opportunity for many years, 12, 13, 14 years working with oncology patients, to learn what not to do and learn what I thought was the better thing to do. And then always reevaluating, always coming back, making sure that everybody is okay. So my first group that I need to make sure is okay are the people that are working there, because they're the ones that are actually giving the client their experience. Right? Even when you're at clinic, who's giving the client their experience? The teachers, the supervisors, the students. So I need to make sure the people who are running that piece of the show, my job is to make sure that they're okay.
I love that. I think that, again, setting those protocols and setting those clear expectations, even from the management side of things, made such a big difference and allowed for better continuity of care as well. That's great. I'd love to, I think that's a great segue to Noah again, because I think one of the things you mentioned was clear kind of planning and communicating with your patients of expectations. I'd love to hear sort of how you evolved to that point, because I think that was one thing that we are big at when in our clinics. And I feel like I never got a solid grasp of that as a student. And that could be because of my failures. But I felt like, and when I interview folks, I find that that's often a sticking point, and kind of getting their buy-in to that can be difficult. I'm curious kind of how you came to seeing the benefit of that and how you incorporate that and coach that in your teams.
Yeah, it's I don't think it's a failure of anybody, especially in an individual practice. I think it certainly comes on more easily, more naturally when you're working with a large group and when you're sharing patients. I think the quarantine that we just came through, this was all stuff that we did historically, but the quarantine really sharpened our focus on this, because we closed our doors here in New York on March 16th of last year, and March 17th, Yinova Center was a virtual practice. And so it really got us to take a look at what it is that we do, what it is that we can offer our patients, all the things that it's easy to lose sight of that we do in this medicine that doesn't involve needles. And like I said before, there are two columns of things that we provide people. One, a skill, and it's a skill that takes a lifetime to learn, but it's not a singularly complicated skill. And information and conveying to patients all of this other stuff that we're all talking about. Patients come to us sometimes with something super simple, like busted up my ankle over the weekend, or something really complicated, like the types of patients that Felicia deals with on a more regular basis. We have patients who come to us, we're primarily a reproductive health practice. So we have patients who come in who have often complicated, often long-term conditions or health concerns. And by long-term, meaning things that are going to take time. And we're not necessarily going to see the fruits of our efforts in 1 or 2 sessions. And so it became very clear to us that helping people see the trajectory of their care and sharpening our own focus on the trajectory of our goals and what we're trying to create for them was really important. So part of what we do in terms of planning with patients is we try to demystify the black box of Chinese medicine, because it can be complicated. People often see images of acupuncture and don't know how they go from twisting their ankle to winding up on the table with the needles. And so kind of talking them through the process a bit, and that has to do with the acupuncture treatment itself, but also future plans, herbs, lifestyle, exercise, all the things that we talk to patients about. And giving them some sense of how these things all come together, this idea of the holistic view. But goals are really important. That's at the heart of all of it. What our long-term goals are, healthy term conception, whatever the patient's goal is. But creating those short-term goals, that's really vital, because that's the tangible stuff that patients can latch onto and feel like we're doing something. And a lot of the time, as we've all talked about in different ways, it doesn't necessarily look like what you think it's going to look like, but creating the architecture for you to know this is where we are and this is where we're trying to get, and here are some landmarks that we hope to see along the way that are going to give us an indication that we're doing the right thing. That's super, super valuable in that communication with patients.
I love that. I think that the pandemic helped us kind of tighten that up a little bit too. And I think people are actually, at first we were worried people would feel like this is forced or something like that, but really it is just a reminder of the fact that we're actually thinking about the longer term. We're here for, going back to that concept of holistic, we're here for the full human being, not just that ankle, right? Yeah, excellent. I could ask questions for days, but I think we should probably pass it on to Kimberlie to kind of close it out here.
Thank you, Lamya. You guys were just awesome. I was really impressed with each and every one of you guys. There were a lot of similar themes, which means that you're all sort of coming to these things because it's a reality, And so I wanted to go through some of the things that stood out for me. I'll start with Felicia. Your focus was on professionalism and readiness, systems, protocols, team building, all of those things. But you put it in the context of courtesy, patience, compassion, respect. All these words were coming out of you that, it's really about the patient at the end of the day. And these things, the protocols and systems are only to serve that. And so if you don't have those, then you can't serve the higher functions of healers. And that's really important in the healing process, right?
May I say something, Kimberlie?
Yes, sure.
When you have those things in place, it actually takes the pressure off of the practitioner's brain to have to worry about things like that. So now I can fully focus on my client, right?
That's awesome. Yeah, fully be present, right? And be witness for my patient. just a message from Olga. I assume she's leaving. Thank you, Olga, for coming. Anyway, so then moving into Erminia, Erminia, your I am a healer, and you said it several times. I love that. It's so important. You can't say it enough, and you can't say it loud and proud enough. You know, that was awesome. But you also had this idea of structure and your ERP, you know, the exceptional care, accountability, accessibility, reliability, planning, partnership, and of course, passion. And passion is what creates chi, right? And that's what's going to give focus and momentum to your treatment. So whatever supports that is going to help everything else. And bouncing off of that, Leng, you know, we make miracles. That was an awesome thing. You know, we do. I mean, healing is a miraculous thing. And again, you also, like Felicia, focused on the structures of that. What structures do you need to be able to do that? And you had safety and confidence, holistic view of the patient, respect, anticipating needs, being heard, and allowed to be vulnerable. And I particularly loved that part you talked about vulnerability. I think it can't be talked about enough. It's very, very important. And nurturing that is very important. So thank you so much for that. And then Noah, I'm going to sum you up with the word architecture, which you just used in what you were just talking about, because you also, like Felicia, like Leng, like Erminia, we're all saying, you know, you need to have the structures in place to be able to do your job. And so you're looking at the patient in a holistic way. You called it holism. And honesty, that's extremely important, especially for trust building. Availability, partnership, having a clear plan, accountability. These were the types of things you were talking about. And I also like that you brought in about the pandemic experience and how that forced you to reevaluate these structures and revitalize them. So so that was really interesting. I had a very similar experience of the pandemic, so I understand that it really was, you had to like rethink everything in a way. And of course, Caroline, that was amazing. I have the list of these 10 essentials, and I'm going to be using them. Thank you for bringing them to us. But I love that you first and foremost went forth with this idea of sharing in all ways of that word, you know, whether it's in partnership, you use the term stakeholders. So you're even thinking way beyond you know, just the patient and the practitioner. And that I think is an awesome perspective. The essentials that you focused on, the professionalism, the personal, professional, and leadership development, and how that means self-reflection and, you know, always seeking to keep going. And yeah, it's by, I'm responding to a comment by Minia. Yes, many classes have made me very good at note taking. But anyway, I also love that you brought in this idea of the polypharmacy. This is a really important issue that all of our professions will be facing and having to come up with systems and protocols around that. That you mentioned under quality and safety, and the when you were talking about the knowledge and the multidisciplinary nature of healing practices, that's really important. And And the systems-based practice, again, going back into that idea of protocols and systems, extremely important. And the interpersonal partnerships, just so essential. And then person-centered care, population health, scholarship, information, healthcare technology were the ones that you didn't really talk much about. But I think that those were, you can extrapolate from what you did talk about those. And just awesome discussion. And thank you so much. Is really, really enlightening, you know, inspiring, you know, really, you know, it really helped me a lot. Thank you very much. And so if it helped me, I'm hoping it helped others. So thank you so much. And that's it. I hope you all have a good rest of the day.
Take care, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us.